China. The fellas. Hello, guys. Hey, how are you? Nice seeing you. Let's see, do I hear them?
I hope you hear us.
Now I do. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah.
Wow, what a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. You guys, are you still in China?
We're back and forth right now, but we're currently based in LA. We're working on a couple new projects.
You are Sea Milk, and you are Winston.
That's correct, yes.
And, I've been watching a lot of your videos. You're very entertaining. I subscribe to your podcast channel today, ADVpodcasts.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very entertaining, and you guys are a lot of regular content, and people have a lot of questions about China. They're very interested. Maybe... give us an overview of what your show is like, because I think you'll be able to do a better job of that than me.
Sure. Well, I'm actually the first person to ever start a YouTube channel within mainland China, and I started it more than 10 years ago. That's actually how we met. And I just couldn't believe that there was no information out there about what it's like to live in China. So that's why I started it. People were asking me back home, like, what are you doing in China? Isn't it dangerous? Isn't it like a gulag over there? You're going to get arrested for having an opinion. So I started to just make everyday life videos to show people that it's actually quite an interesting place, a lot of fun. And people started to watch my videos and ask me more questions. What's it like to date a Chinese girl? What's it like to live there, cost of living? And it kind of expanded from that. I met Sea Milk, Matt, and together we started this ADVChina thing. And it's just progressed from there, really.
ADV podcast is basically our culmination of all these years in China and our analysis of what's happening currently there. Because CNN, BBC, Fox, you can send a reporter out there for 2 weeks that gets their story done, but there's no real analysis there unless you've spent 10 plus years there.
Yeah, we're also both married, not to each other, but to Chinese women. So we can speak Chinese, and we've got a pretty in-depth insight into the culture.
I see. Well, yeah, in-depth insight, to say the least, I would say. You've gone so far as to marry women from there, and now that is interesting. You're originally from South Africa, if I'm not...
That's correct, yes.
And Matt, you're from...
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York, I see,
yeah.
Okay. You guys are on your motorcycles quite a bit, and the traffic there... It's a joke here. We take, of course, the Chinese people or Asian people, not good drivers. But there, it's kind of just the rules. People are trying to kill you at all times.
When people say they've had a close call, like I had a close call, somebody ran a red light in LA, and we're like, are you kidding me?
No idea.
On a daily basis, you almost die. You see your life flash before your eyes.
Right.
It's boring.
There is no, the thing people don't understand is China hasn't had access to vehicles for a very long time. It's only been in the last 30 plus years that people have actually had access to cars. Before that, you were lucky if you had a bicycle. So people just don't understand the rules of the road. They didn't have a father or a grandfather to teach them how to drive. They didn't grow up in the back seat of a car. They don't really know what's going on. So they kind of get to a point where it's like, well, I want to drive. Let me figure it out. They get in a car and they just do it.
Not to mention the prolific amount of bribery involved at the DMVs there to buy your license.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oh, okay. So it's like more of it's a privilege anywhere, I suppose. But like you have to be sort of you have to have a lot of money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, especially if you're in one of the first tier big cities like Beijing or Shanghai or Shenzhen, they actually have a lottery to see if you can get like a license plate. Sometimes it can be like 1 in 1,000 chance just for the privilege of being able to buy a car for 4 times the average price.
Actually, the car's expensive, but the license plate's even more expensive. I think right now in Shenzhen, it was about 90,000 RMB. What's that in US dollars?
Yeah, it's like $12,000 US just for the plate.
Just for the license plate. So, if you want a license plate for your car, if you can even get one through the lottery system, you have to then pay $12,000 for that plate.
Wow. So, and you mentioned in one of the videos that I saw, the stealing is not very common in China. But I would think with with cars being so, difficult. I would think make somebody a prime target.
Oh no, but you know what they do is they ransom license plates. So if you park your car in a dodgy area, they'll steal your license plate and leave a note on your windscreen saying, if you want your license plate back, send money here or meet me here, and then you can find your license plates in that bush or something. Because the hassle and the bureaucracy to get that plate replaced is actually so difficult that people are willing to pay 10,000 RMB just to get their license plate back.
Right.
No questions asked, huh? And
yeah,
that's incredible. But that is crime, right? I mean that would qualify. That's being pulled over and not having your license plate would probably be a pretty serious offense then.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, the cops don't really pull people over. Mm-hmm. Everything is done through cameras. So, you can run through a red light and there can be a police guy right there. He's going to see you, but he's not going to pursue you. He's not going to stop you. But you'll get a hell of a fine in the mail and you'll get points taken off your license.
Yeah, what they'll do is they're trying to get rid of motorcycles because they think they look poor. So China's losing face by having a lot of motorcycles on the road. So they don't really chase people. There's no police chases. But what they'll do is chuck road cones under your tire when you're trying to get by the cops, and then you just tumble off and they take your bike basically.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That sounds very, very dangerous. And you guys are on bikes all the time.
Yeah, that is what we do.
It's part of when we plan our trips, we have to see which cities are bike friendly and which are not bike friendly. Because even if you're fully licensed, insured, and registered and all that, there are certain cities you're not allowed to ride motorcycles into. If you do, they immediately confiscate it from you. So we've had a couple of situations where we've, by mistake, gone into these cities. And even though other bikes are sometimes allowed, if it's not a local license plate, you're not allowed. There's all these funny rules. And we've been sitting at the stoplights and a policeman will just run up and grab our keys and take them out the ignition and force us onto the side of the road. And
you get a lot of people that will actually rewire their ignition to a dummy switch on the side. So the cops rip your keys out, you flip the switch and you ride off. We may or may not have done that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Godspeed. Be careful. When you come, this is home now, right? I mean, will you ever come to the United States to live, or I mean, I doubt you'll be going back to South Africa.
Oh yeah, for me, totally not. South Africa is an absolute lost cause. There's no reason for me to go back there. Right now, I'm working with Matt on various media projects, and I'm going to be here for as long as I can. I absolutely love the States. I think it's a fantastic country. Absolutely.
You can't believe how much you take for granted when you leave for 10 plus years,
In China, you mean? Or
yeah. No, you take for granted from America.
Oh, right.
You leave a boring little town when you're 22 and you think everything's going to be better somewhere else. You come back after 10 years and you realize, wow, this is a functioning society.
Well, I mean, China is a step up from South Africa as far as opportunity, safety, and things like that's concerned. But America is a big step up from China.
Sure.
I can put it that way.
Right. So you weren't taking the genocide for granted.
No, absolutely, because it affects my family and friends. Yeah.
As I know, your story is it's incredible, and that's just it's a real mess down there right now. What's going on in South Africa currently? What's the current state of affairs?
It's bad. There's a lot of xenophobia right now, and the funny thing is, it's actually xenophobia against other Africans. So people coming in from Zimbabwe or Botswana or Ghana, any other place in Africa that set up shop and run a business or try to make a life for themselves. They're being targeted. Their businesses are being looted and they're being burnt down to the ground and they're being murdered. And there's all sorts of horrible things happening right now. That's very current. And the country's actually in a very bad state. You don't get to see it really in the news because no one really cares about South Africa. But being part of all, having family and friends there, I get sent the videos from their phones of, trucks on fire and businesses on fire. And the place is really, it's a mess right now.
You were telling me about the new thing that they're doing is just firing into traffic, hoping they kill a driver so they can loot the truck.
Well, that's been going on for a long time, setting up burning roadblocks in certain areas. It's really, really tough there at the moment. And everybody that can and has the means to leave has or is trying to.
Right. Yeah. The Boers are probably, I would assume that all the xenophobic type killing you described, the other countries and stuff like that, Zimbabwe or whatever, that's not slowing down the killing of the Boers or the
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
The problem with that is that it's pretty much government condoned. And, I don't want to get all conspiracy theory. I can only speak from facts and from my own experiences. And the way it's going is the government feeds the hatred and basically puts this idea out there that it's okay to do that, and that's what's happening. And I know personally people that have been murdered, and I know personally people that have been very badly affected, including my parents, when it comes to the whole farm attack thing and the whole reappropriation of land without compensation and all that kind of stuff. It's incredibly bad. And the worst thing is that there's an attitude of the sort of international community that for some reason the victims here deserve it. And it's really tough to see that. I'm not Afrikaans myself. I'm not a Boer, but I have a lot of Afrikaans friends, and it's incredibly tough to see, especially the Boer. The Afrikaners have a very sort of tight-knit relationship with the land. It was very difficult. It's very much like the settlers in America going through all the long ox wagon thing. And they did the similar thing in South Africa. They really feel like they're part of the land, and to have it sort of torn away from them is it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, we all of my friends pay attention to this. To whatever degree, and care about it. It is a nightmare what you're going through, and I can understand what you mean. Hard to pull away when you've been there for hundreds of years. Your families have been there for hundreds of years. It's not as if it was something that was just. They make it sound as if, I guess, that the current citizens there, the current farmers, invented apartheid or something. And, made all this happen, and it's. Maybe that's why they feel like this provides them some measure of justice or something, which is outlandish. Yeah, the UN doesn't have any particular opinion on it because, for whatever reason. But Malema, it's Julius Malema. He was saying, well, we're not calling for anybody to be killed yet.
No, he's terrible. That guy.
Keyword.
Yeah, Julius Malema is just he's a piece of work. He's just absolute trash, that guy.
That's a nice choice of words.
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing but disdain for that individual. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, he's that, to me, saying that is as good. It's as good as a call for violence.
Yeah, absolutely. He goes out and he whips up a crowd by basically saying, "Shoot the Boer." He said it. He's got songs where he runs around saying like, let's go kill the Boer. That's pretty much what he says, and he gets away with it. It's ridiculous. You can't fathom that an actual leader of a political party in a country is allowed to go around saying, "Kill this minority." Literally, let's go shoot them.
And it's not even considered hate speech.
No, it's not.
Ruled by a judge not to be hate speech. Correct? Am I correct? Yeah.
Absolutely, it's ridiculous.
It's Orwellian as, and I don't know how you feel about our news media here. I think it's pretty bad on the whole. Most of it is. It's the reason that there's a lot of independent people talking about stuff now is because it's filling a vacuum of truth. There's like nothing true. So what's your coverage and I'll hear from both of you on this. What's your coverage of crime like and politics and stuff in China?
Oh, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I mean, crime it's very different. Yeah. The stuff you hear on the news here would make you think that America is a horrifically dangerous, apocalyptic wasteland, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And that's a good thing. That's transparent media. That's fair coverage. That's letting people know what is happening and why. Whereas crime in China, if you look at the CIA fact book or any sort of state-sponsored facts that China releases to the West about crime rates in China, you'll see that China on paper is so safe. It's spick and span. It's the cleanest place in the world. Nothing bad happens. And that's just not the case, right? Literally nothing is reported. Anytime that there is any sort of bad news or crime, it is quickly covered up, even through social media. The most popular app in China is called WeChat. It's kind of like WhatsApp or Twitter or something like that. But people will share videos of kidnappings, of firebombings, of
murders, actual murders. We
beheadings.
We see it on our phones. It's terrible.
And in real life.
Are you rating it? I mean, like,
that was
that was a good one. Yeah.
It gets to the point where you're so desensitized because of the amount of crime you see, not only in real life but like on social media.
Yeah.
that you look at the news coverage of it and it's just hilarious. And that's the stuff that gets exported to the West. So I'll say this. I've seen crime in America. I've seen crime in the US. I've seen 10 times more crime in my 10 years in China. The natures of those crimes might be slightly different. It is safer to walk on the streets at night in China, but the absolute random acts of violence and theft and things like that are much more rampant in China than you'd ever think.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, I come from a country where crime is just off the wall. I personally have seen, dead bodies in South Africa. I've seen some pretty horrific things happen. I've had actual personal friends and family murdered in South Africa. It's not a joke. I'm no stranger to crime and violent crime.
When you say you've had them murdered, you mean
yeah,
like
I haven't actually put out the hit itself. I mean, it's
I'm
just
glad you cleared that
just
up.
yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah,
it's a tragedy though.
No, it is. But that's why I'm pretty desensitized when it comes to crime. And so when I went to China, it really was quite a shock to me, like how safe everything appeared to be, because it really is. You can walk around in the streets and, feel completely safe. You see young women walking by themselves late at night, and it doesn't seem like there's any kind of problem. But something I did realize along the way is that, of course, social harmony is the Chinese government's number one priority. They cannot make people feel unsafe. If people feel unsafe or feel unhappy with the government or the situation around them, it will cause unrest. And when you've got so many people, it's very quick for mobs to form and for riots to form and things like that. So they make sure that they do not report the bad crimes. When somebody does stab his whole family to death and do this kind of thing, it won't make the news ever.
Good example is right next to my house. We were wondering why there was blood coming out of the front door of a hospital building.
A huge amount of blood, all footprints and everything.
And there was 14 nurses murdered with a machete. That didn't make the news. That wasn't in the newspaper.
It never made the news, but something that we witnessed ourselves. And I saw somebody get stabbed at an ATM machine in Shenzhen when I was in the Dongmen area. And that never made the news either. Right. These things happen. And, I have an analogy for this, which I've said a couple of times. If you live in a neighborhood and just around the corner, somebody gets brutally murdered, a whole family is brutally murdered. When you find out about it, you will think that you're living in an incredibly dangerous neighborhood. You're going to be on guard. You're going to suddenly feel like you're in danger all the time. But if you've never been told about it, if it's hushed up, the family gets buried, they paint the house, it looks perfect, you will believe that you're in the safest neighborhood in the world because nothing ever happens there. There's no crime. And that's what happens in China. Now, in America and various other Western countries, if that family gets murdered around the corner, they will hype it up so much and make you feel as if it's happening in every neighborhood. Everybody feels unsafe. Everybody feels like the crime is sky high and it's all over the place. It's the opposite effect in the West as in China,
I see. So what we need is a baby bear type of crime reporting. To be whatever's just right.
I think it's done well. It is sensationalized a bit.
Goldilocks that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the more people know, the better. China is a fairly dysfunctional society, especially outside of the big cities.
Yes.
The stuff that happened, the rapes and crime that happen in some of these villages we've been to that no one's allowed to talk about because usually it involves government officials.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
Sure.
Now, there's a lot of government officials, though, right? More than you would normally think, because there are a lot of people working for the government. But so there's no pressure on the police, really, to do a good job, to solve crime, to stop crime. I mean, if the public, by and large, don't know about it, then, what is the incentive?
They don't want to. They actually don't want to get involved. The police will avoid getting involved if they can, because it just means it's a hassle for them. And I have a few real-world examples. The first time that this really hit home for me was I was cycling past a bridge and I saw a guy who was naked standing on the top of the bridge about to jump off the bridge, okay? You get these naked guys in China when they
call them naked Jesus.
Yeah, they have mental issues and they kind of lose their clothes and walk around. So this guy was standing on a bridge, literally about to jump. And I went down the road as fast as I could to where I know there's a police station, and there's a policeman standing outside. And I told him in Chinese, there's a guy on a bridge there about to jump. And he's like, where? And I told him the name of the road, and he's like, that's not our area. I was like, okay, thanks. I went back. Guy wasn't there. I guess he didn't jump.
Did you hear a splash?
No, actually, it was a lot of traffic beneath. It was above a road, so I would have seen something. But
you would have heard something.
Yeah,
we get the occasional naked Jesus here too.
Yeah,
naked Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one. There are plenty of other examples I could give you, but they don't like to get involved unless they absolutely have to. So if you want to get arrested in China, you really have to try super hard.
There's this thing, I'll say very quickly, there's this thing called Wenming. Wenming means like politeness. Yeah. And every city in China will have a Wenming, civility, politeness. They'll have a Wenming Day. And a Wenming Day is like when the officials will come through, and then they'll examine the city. Is it a polite city? Is it a civilized city? How's the crime rate? Things like that. And they'll put up all these banners, and only on that day or those couple days will the cops be out in the streets. They're wearing pristine white gloves. They're directing traffic. It's like North Korea or something, right? You think you're living in a utopia. And
utopia like North Korea.
Yeah, utopia, exactly. Well, the way they portray it, right? Right. They clear off all the street vendors, all this kind of stuff. Will shut everything down. It's quite brutal. And then as soon as the officials are not in town anymore, everything goes back to chaos. Yeah. So China is quite the paper tiger in terms of like law enforcement and how things work.
Well, sort of a paper tiger in terms of construction as well, it seems.
Yeah. Literally. Paper mache tiger.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, like, we've seen some videos of stuff crumbling, on the show. Maybe we'll get a chance to look at some interesting videos in a minute, but I was watching one of your videos where you were looking at some of the building material and the way it crumbles, and I guess the housing bubble is continuing, but it forces them to, they need houses. They need, people are making a lot of money on this, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a huge pillar of the economy, and when that collapses, when that pops, it's going to be chaos. I mean, everyone's predicting wrongly when this bubble is going to pop.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's just so much money being thrown around in building materials and all these new developments and stuff that it doesn't really matter. Like, China can cover up the news when the buildings fall down. Nobody in China knows about it. The West gets to have a chuckle and be like, wow, we have it so good over here, But actually, people are suffering, and it's terrible quality of life.
Yeah, and I mean, these apartments that are being built so quickly, they're just a form of investment. They're just a form of investment. And in fact, a lot of people buy them sight unseen. And, there's a new
no intention to live in them.
Yeah, there's a new development going up. Okay, so then they buy it before it's even built. Then gets shoddily, hastily built, and they already have someone who's ready to buy it at like double the price. At the moment, it's just a crazy way of investment. People are speculating left and right. Everybody's in debt because of speculation, and it's really, really crazy.
They call them tofu buildings.
Yeah, and they call it chaofang, which means like fry houses, like as if you're frying rice. That's their way of saying, just invest in buying different houses. It's quite crazy.
And nail houses also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, nail houses are the people that refuse to move because they're on a prime piece of land. They're normally farmers, and they've built a little house. And so the government says, or a construction company says, we want to build there. And they're like, no, we're not going to move. So they end up like just building around them. They call it a nail house because it just sticks out, doesn't, move.
And they refuse to, even when they can get a probably pretty good price, right?
Oh, yeah, very, very good price. They're just holding out to get a better price, that's all.
Jeez. And are there any standards there in terms of construction?
You have huge conglomerates that will have building standards because there's so much on the line, foreign investors and things like that. But I mean, by and large, not really. Not really.
Even the best, top quality places that I've visited always have cracks in the wall, mold, all sorts of problems.
Yeah, a good thing. I mean, I'm assuming, Pat, that you watched our video about how the buildings were crumbling down and we were walking around that village. That village, those houses were upwards of $1 million each.
Yeah,
and we were finding that they were made of cardboard and styrofoam.
Yes.
And 3 years later are now falling down. So it's not that the rich people are getting better stuff necessarily.
Yeah, you see the method in which they build most of the apartment buildings is they simply just have a concrete shell. So the concrete shell itself is fairly sturdy, and that'll hold. but everything else that gets put on all the other the walls and all the
cladding,
everything else is just of such poor quality that it just starts degrading and falling down immediately as soon as it's put up.
And it's one thing to hear you talk about it, but to see you guys actually walking through there, it's really something to see how actually fragile it is. What about industrial? We have Chinese industrial accidents that we watch sometimes on video here, and they're funny because it just seems as if there was nobody watching. There doesn't seem to be any kind of an OSHA or someone's asleep at the switch there. It seems like like when you have all these shelves that fall like dominoes and stuff, and just like all these things that happen. You go, wow! How it just seems like that would be more expensive to do it that way.
It's just part of society, though, man. It's like it's reflected in the government. It's reflected in the building quality. It's reflected in everything. It's all based on corruption, and it's this top-down management system where there is somebody who cares about this and says, you know what, we need safety in the workplace. So they send their minions out to go and make sure. So minions go out to the job site or whatever. They get there, it's a mess. And the people are like, look, we don't want to have to spend money to do this. So here, just take this bribe and give us the okay. And so they sign off on it,
Yeah, even in the private industry, like my wife, she was a sales manager for a big TV company. I won't say which one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, even the leadership of that company is very insulated from what's actually happening. So he'll give an order. It'll kind of trickle down. Nobody really wants to go through the effort of actually making that happen because they're fairly, they don't have a good salary or anything. There's not a whole lot of motivation to work. Yeah. Honestly, they'll go for a factory tour. Everything's screwed. Everything is like literally not okay for export. But they'll tell the boss that everything's okay. So he's insulated. He's happy. And whatever superior or whatever government official that he has to deal with is happy as well. So it's it's just really messy. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems
you will see it.
Yeah, it's like it's all going to crumble. In the next, how long is it going to take before everything there? I mean, they've industrialized so quickly in China. It seems like so many more new big cities, that have just shot up in only like 50 years or so.
It's tough. It's tough to predict that because in order for China to continue to be a success, they have to keep building and they have to keep making. So they actually don't care when things break down. In fact, I've seen new buildings go up and before they're even completed, they're knocked down again so that something can replace it because that's the engine that's driving the economy.
We've seen windmills when government officials will show up to a city. I'm not joking. Mm-hmm. Windmills that don't work so that they're powered by gas or electric turbines for when the official drives past. That's how broken it is. So when you ask about a timeline of when this is going to collapse, the problem is unless China liberalizes or turns into at least a semblance of a democracy like Hong Kong or Taiwan, it will never really get past the state it's in. It's going to keep putting Band-Aids over the situation, limiting the populace from knowing the actual issues at stake because there's 70 to 90 million government officials that need to stay in power. And it's going to stay like that no matter what. Famine, Absolutely. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before,
It's just repeat of history.
I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah, because everybody's got a stake in that. Don't they care about you guys doing what you're doing? I mean, it doesn't seem like they would care for it.
Oh, we have a lot of stories from about that.
It's kind of a weird situation. It was always a gray area for me to be doing YouTube because YouTube is banned in China, in mainland China. You can't watch it. It's completely blocked. So I wasn't actually spreading any thing within China. I wasn't actually doing anything in China because it was blocked. So on paper, Chinese people couldn't see what I was doing, even though a lot of them can by using VPNs. But, the majority of my videos, at least for the first, I'd say 6-7 years, were very positive, showing the fun, interesting aspects of China and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And so it was a very weird situation because I've appeared on Chinese state television a few times where they're sort of showcasing what I do. But what I'm doing is theoretically not legal, or at least for Chinese people can't even see what I do. So it was a very weird situation. And that kind of can explain to you what China's all about because it's such a gray area. They needed to have a segment about foreigners doing interesting things. So they do a segment about me making videos about China on a platform that's completely banned in China. But there I am on state media, on the news talking about it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because you're confessing to a major crime or something.
Well,
It also shows how broken it is, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's
got to a point now where in all honesty, I'd say within the last year, we've seen a massive shift in the attitude towards foreigners in China, and especially any foreigner who has any kind of media influence or any kind of social media influence. It's very dangerous, and that is the reason why we're not living in China at the moment.
I think a lot of people are convinced that somehow we've changed or something, but really over the past 10 plus years, China's changed dramatically, and
absolutely
mostly for the worse.
Yeah.
I think we were really there in the golden years, and we really trumpeted China. We were kind of disappointed in Western media coverage of China because it was actually a pretty fun place to be. But the more you learn the language, you see how the government is progressing, you see the cracks on the surface and literally the cracks in the buildings.
Yeah.
And you start to get a little paranoid, especially like when you have a family and things like that. And you see how your friends are going to political prison. You see how they're cracking down on freedom of speech. You see how 70% of the internet's been blocked, how they squash protests. And you see all this kind of stuff, and you actually have a Chinese lens because you understand the language, you understand the people.
Yes.
And it makes you deeply concerned about the direction that the country's going in. And to be fair, like two white guys talking on YouTube about this with fairly large audience, we're a pretty big target.
Yeah, unless you want to be very positive about the CCP and make videos that are trumpeting how great they are.
We've always been pro-China, but we cannot be pro-Chinese government right now.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Pro-CCP would seem a bit uncomfortable. I mean, that's...
it's a lie.
Yeah, of course. And it doesn't seem like they would tolerate that at all. I mean, they'd have you in some sort of a group self-analysis program or something like that.
It'd be worse than that. We have a friend that's in jail right now.
Yeah,
actually.
absolutely. Yeah, we do.
Oh.
Yeah, it's actually pretty awful because we saw, as Seamilk was saying, we actually saw China continually improve, and improve as in open up and start to address some of the problems, that it's admittedly had. But now we're seeing a point where they do not want to improve. They do not want to admit to any faults, and they actually want to start blaming the outside world for all their problems once again. And they want to lock out foreigners and basically point the blame towards us.
And that's when it directly affects us.
Yeah.
And I guess they want to take Hong Kong back a little bit early.
Yes. No, they're not living up to their promises. And this is a big warning to countries like Taiwan, because you've got a certain amount of people in Taiwan who do want to reunify with mainland China, but the way they want to convince their fellow countrymen is by saying, well, look at Hong Kong, that's a one country, two systems, so we can still keep our way of life, but still be a part of the mainland. The thing is, what's happening in Hong Kong now is showing people that that's not the case. China will interfere. China will make sure that they put the people they want in government. They will force their policies through if necessary. And it's a big wake-up call for the rest of the world to show that China will never honor its agreements,
There's a couple things with that. Like, I think China played its hand really poorly, as it usually does, wait until the last minute, try to do something very drastic and piss off a lot of people. And that's what you're seeing in Hong Kong right now. The majority of Hong Kong is very anti-CCP, very anti-China, and absolutely will not want to be handed back, right? There might have been a small chance in the future that they could have slowly been integrated or something, but that chance is dead now. So you look at a situation like Hong Kong where all public trust is lost now, and China now has to deal with the consequences. And there's actually this huge bit of misinformation that's going on right now I'd like to clear up. The whole Hong Kong protest thing happening, currently happened because of the extradition law.
That's right, yeah.
The fact that you could go to jail in mainland China for committing a crime, even if you're in Hong Kong, right? It would kind of integrate the legal systems together. And we know what happens to people in jail in Hong Kong or in mainland China. There's no real judicial system to be talked about. Basically, it's bribery. It's corruption.
Like a
99% conviction
rate if you get accused of anything.
Oh, the prosecutors, they're incredible, aren't they?
Yeah, they're
defense attorneys, not very good.
No, because they'll end up in jail if they try to defend you too hard.
So anyway, China
Wait,
shouldn't have tried to
one
push
moment,
it.
just so to make sure I understand you here. So if you're in Hong Kong and you disobey something, it's more of a law in China. You can be
Correct.
extradited back to China to
Correct.
answer for that. Okay.
The apologists for the CCP were saying that it has to be a crime that carries a 7-year prison sentence or something like this. But anything could be construed as that. I mean, like just by saying I hate the leader Xi Jinping, that could be treason, right?
Yeah.
So it's a slippery slope. It's not even a slippery slope. It would change the entire judicial climate.
A trapdoor.
Yeah, especially since Hong Kong is such a travel hub. Anyone who travels to Asia or anywhere around the world really kind of goes through Hong Kong.
Right. So say you were an anti-China dissident, even like a white dude from America, you could show up in the Hong Kong airport and be shipped off, right?
Not a white dude from America. No.
Worse. I think honestly, this extradition bill. This is my theory. The whole thing came about because of that. The Huawei CFO snafu in Canada.
Yeah, it's retribution.
Because they arrested her because she needs to be extradited to America, and they were probably like, "Hey, now that's a good idea. Why don't we see if we can sort something like that
That's
out for
an
us?"
interesting theory.
Now
the thing I wanted to clear up really quickly is that everyone is now celebrating the Hong Kong protesters because it looks like Carrie Lam, the current leader of Hong Kong, has said that she's going to kill the extradition bill.
Finally.
That's absolutely not the case. Number one, there's five demands that the protesters actually want. But most importantly, the bill is not dead until it goes to the legislative building in Hong Kong. And that's going to happen sometime mid-October, right?
Yes.
Now, China realizes that there's a massive screw-up. There's this huge unrest in Hong Kong. But they also have their 70th anniversary of the CCP, the Communist Party, on October 1st.
It's super important.
The worst thing that can happen for Beijing right now is for this massive anti-China protest to be happening during the 70th anniversary, a very important military demonstration, very important date for China. So it's almost like this was orchestrated to say, hey, Carrie, tell them that the bill's dead, even though you don't actually have full power to stop it.
Right.
It still has to go through the House, the legislation, which has majority Beijing rule, by the way.
Yeah.
And then we're going to vote on it mid-October, and everyone's going to get off the streets and like chill out, and then you're just going to reinstate it after the whole anniversary is over.
Yeah.
That seems pretty manipulative and smart.
They left it too long.
Yeah.
You know what is manipulative is the fact that they keep blaming these protests on foreign black hands.
They call them black hands.
Yeah, foreigners are the ones who are, forcing the Hong Kong people to go and take to the streets.
What a slap in the face for Hong Kongers,
Yeah, especially when 2 million people go to the street. What's that, a fifth of Hong Kong or something?
A quarter, yeah.
A quarter of Hong Kong people go to the streets to protest. That's certainly not the CIA going in there and whispering in people's ears.
Our friend, tell him about your friend.
Yeah, we've got a friend, he's British. And he's kind of a part-time photojournalist, so he goes to the protests to take photos. And they were circulating his picture around on the Chinese social media.
Oh, this is state-run, by the way.
Yeah, circling him, saying he's a CIA agent. He's one of the black
British
hands.
photographer.
He's a British English teacher who takes pictures on the side,
Jesus. Well, we have had some problems with our intelligence lately too, but to my knowledge, they're still not photographers from England and whatnot. But that's incredible. Wow, and it's just misinformation. Can you believe anything that comes from the Chinese government?
Pretty much no. I mean, it all serves one purpose, right? To extend CCP rule.
Yeah.
So if you look at it through that lens, they could report on the fact that they adopted 6 giraffes for the zoo or something, but there is always a purpose for Chinese state media, and it's always politically driven to promote Xi Jinping and CCP rule.
Yeah.
You can't take it seriously.
It's literally there to, push apart China from the foreign world. What they're trying to do is drive a wedge in between foreigners and China. And they want people to treat foreign people as the enemy and as people who are against China in order to build unity and strength within China.
And this is what China's traditionally done when there is economic decline or hints of economic decline is now it's the West's fault, let's close off again. It's just dynastical. It's the same thing it's always done.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea. It seems as if they run, Hong Kong is run like a Western democracy, basically.
Correct,
yes. Yeah. And it just gets to be built up, through that, and then it'll just all that money or whatever, all that wealth would become part of China. I know that Hong Kong's not quite as economically relevant as it once was,
Sure.
but it still matters. It seems to still matter, even though it's much smaller than some of the other big cities.
For sure, on the world stage, and maybe it doesn't matter as much to China, but on the world stage, for international financial institutions that would prefer to operate out of a transparent, society and country
which
with
has
real
laws.
legal consequences,
That's the thing. When I started my company years ago, I couldn't start a company in mainland China because foreigners were not allowed to. And the only way I could do it is with a Chinese partner who had to own the majority of the business.
Yeah.
And it was a huge, massive thing. But I could just go over the border into Hong Kong, and just like any normal civilized Western country, I could go and apply and register a company and do everything and be protected, open up a company bank account. Whereas, in mainland China, I could do nothing of the sort.
And you can understand why Hong Kong people that have grown up with this transparency, access to English, access to media, access to,
the
good
internet.
education
The
system,
internet's not blocked there.
They're not going to be happy when, Daddy Xi, Pooh Bear, comes in and says, listen, your way of life is done. Of course people are going to be pissed off.
Sure.
Yeah, well, what you described, being able to open a business in Hong Kong but not in mainland China, we have the same thing here from California and a lot of people moving to Texas. It's all this regulation and stuff.
Sure.
It's not quite as perfect as hard of a mirror as I would like, but it is true. There's a lot of communists in California.
We'll find out soon.
You know why? That's because there's so many Chinese immigrants here.
Is that why? It's all the Chinese immigrants?
That's a joke.
And they bring that with them?
They're exporting,
Yeah, no, just kidding. But it is true, but it's really not that bad because at least you're not discriminated. Being a foreigner myself here in America, I find that I can do everything that a local person in America can do.
Even vote.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I am in a sanctuary state,
Yeah, you're in New York right now.
No, we're in LA.
You're in. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, sanctuary state. We're not far from it. I mean, if we're not, the city is. That's for sure. I'm not for it. How do you feel about them?
Obviously, we have not developed a mature opinion about society in America being gone for so long, but we will. I can say this: coming back. I mean, the stuff that I hear people complaining about on the radio, maybe some of the things you brought up, they will affect me at some point. But just the absolute shit we've dealt with, coming back here, even in LA, it's like a literal paradise. So it's kind of easy to laugh off and be like, you know what, stuff works pretty well here. The fact that people can actually complain about something and have the potential to change is kind of nice.
And you don't have to shit in a hole, right?
You don't have to shit in a hole.
If I can be quite frank, though, this whole sanctuary state thing is actually a big kick in the balls, to be honest.
Sure.
Because Seamilk knows just how difficult it was for me to get my visa to come here, and the amount of work, time, effort, sacrifice.
6 months, over 6 months,
and
nonstop.
Never mind that. I wouldn't have been able to even get that if it wasn't for the years and years of experience and various things that I did in order to reach a point where I could actually apply for the current visa that I'm on. And, to go through all this hassle and to be paying taxes and to go through everything a legal way, because I genuinely want to participate. I can never become a citizen on this visa path that I've chosen. My wife can't work. She's just allowed to be here dependent. But the amount of effort and time that I put into this to get this idea that I could have just waltzed over the border and suddenly just integrated without having done anything, really, like I said, it's a kick in the balls. It's insulting.
I do understand what you're saying.
And that is a damn shame. I hate that. It's not fair for people like you who want to do it right. It's like they want to do the same thing with guns, make it impossible to get those. And it's kind of impossible to get one in the city, but if you go down an illegal path, it's much, much easier to get one.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's another thing is like when doing the right thing becomes so difficult that doing the wrong thing starts to become a temptation, then something's wrong.
Yeah.
Not to bring it back to China, but that's exactly how society works.
Yes.
It's so bureaucratic and difficult to do anything in China that it's just better to do it the wrong way.
Yeah, if you want to start a business, just start it. Don't worry about getting a license.
Yeah.
If you want to open a little factory, just do it. That's
you
why
want a brothel? Go for it.
That's why you don't get the safety, the OSHA type stuff.
Yeah.
It's like when we opened our motorcycle shop, we tried to do everything the right way.
They wouldn't let us.
They wouldn't let us do it. So our Chinese friend who helped us register the business and all that. He's just like, just go ahead and do it. If something happens, then we'll deal with it, And that's how we do it. Yeah.
So I can totally understand why. That explanation makes more sense than anything I've heard. Yeah. Just that, they make it too goddamn difficult to actually follow the rules.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Let's hope it doesn't get that bad here. But you know what? As you're trying to, developing a mature opinion about some of these issues, and I'm sure that you know more than you're letting on, and understand everything, completely. It's simpler here than it is in China. You guys have one party, we have two, but we really only have one. And that's the party of Trump. Are you? Do they like Trump in China? You guys? No.
Well, the thing is, they did. They used to really like him, but then because of the trade war, they've been told not to like him. So you're not allowed to have an opinion in China. You're told what your opinion's supposed to be.
Same here. Same here. Yeah.
Chinese people like Hitler. Like they think he was a good leader, very strong, very powerful.
Really?
So you have to remove actually what their viewpoint is on that. Obviously, they're not keen on the fact that all those Jews died, right? They were brutally murdered in concentration camps, but they remove the fact that he was a very, very strong leader, and that's a key attribute. So that's why Mao today is still on the money and still worshipped. He did kill more people than anyone in history, but he still created the Communist Party of China, so people respect that. Right?
So a strong man who made a few mistakes. That's what they say.
Yeah.
He made a few mistakes.
Literally, that's all they say. Oh, he made a few mistakes.
They really surgically removed the good. I mean, that's you don't get more patriotic than that.
No.
Incredible. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time. I've kept you guys the whole darn episode here, but it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. And everybody should definitely subscribe. The best way to find it, I guess, is just YouTube, ADVChina podcast, right?
Yeah, ADV podcast.
That's awesome. Thank you.
A lot of new content all the time, and it's fascinating stuff.
Thank you so much for having us, Pat.
Yeah, you guys hope to talk to you again soon.
Cool.
For sure.
So long.
Have a
Take
good
care.
one.
Thanks, guys.
Stay awesome.